Welcome back, guys. Well, I've got a treat for you today. What is it? What could it be? Well, it's a surprise. Well, here it is, guys, in all its chroming glory. It's an American motorcycle. It's made by the largest custom motorcycle manufacturer in the world. They've delivered over 30,000 motorcycles around the globe. Customer imported this from the States. We've done various repairs on it. It came in for an MOT this time. It failed on a couple of things, which we're going to put right. I mean, that back tyre's larger than the one on my car. It's a 300mm tyre. And God forbid if you come off, the bike's coming with you, because you're going to probably impale yourself on that. Well, the manufacturer of this bike is Big Dog Motorcycles. Now, before I start any work on this, I want to try and get the bike more vertical and stabilised. It's got this tiny little stand on it, which I don't really trust. As with most cruisers, they have this flat bottom, and we keep a pallet truck next door for all the cruisers. So we can pallet truck them up flat, keep them stable, and then we can work on them safely. So this has failed on a couple of things. One was rear brake pads below 1mm, so we're going to do those, and the rear indicators. It's an American motorcycle, they indicate red, and section 4.4.3 of the MOT says they can't be red, they have to be amber. And the other criteria with these is when the indicator is on and you've got the brake on, it actually switches the brake lights off and back on as part of the indicator. So that fails on a second criteria of the indicator is adversely affecting the operation of another lamp, which is the stop lamp. So as the indicator's on, I apply the brake, see the brake light coming on, and at this one it's switching the brake light off. So it's adversely affecting the operation of another lamp. So I've got the pads out, but the pistons won't push back. Every time I push it back in, they come back out, which suggests that someone's overfilled the reservoir. So I'm going to go to the reservoir now and have a look, see what the situation is in there. So this is a reservoir buried right underneath this exhaust. Let me get the cover off and see what's in there. Well, that's pretty murky in there. I'm just going to go push the pistons back and see what comes out. Well, it's reasonably full. So with the reservoir cover off, I've managed to push the piston back, so I'm going to put the pads in. I'm struggling to push those pistons back, so I'm going to use a pair of pliers. I don't want to damage the caliper, so I'm just going to use a piece of plastic to pry against. Well, now we can see how murky and full that is. It's almost to the brim. So before I pump the brake pedal, push the pistons back, I'm going to draw this fluid out and change it. There we go, brakes are pumped. Okay, the brake's now resolved, so I'm going to remove this seat. So this is the plug that goes to both lights. The way they're wired, it looks like both lights link to this one plug, which is a little unusual because if one light fails, you're going to have to replace both. So I'm hoping down the sides here, there's two chrome strips. These are the chrome strips where it goes to the lights. We have the wire running through the strips. I'm hoping somewhere in the centre here there's going to be a plug, so I can unplug each individual light, wire in a new one, and use the same wiring loom. There's two more screws here. Looks like they're Allen key, but the tyre's in the way. So I've got to take the wheel off. So I've got the light unit off. These are where the extra bolts were, here in the wheel arch. I couldn't get to those with the wheel in place, so the wheel's off there. Right, following this wire back, it looks like it's been joined together here, so left and the right side, and then it goes to this multi-plug. So they are linked, but unfortunately I can't get this light wiring out. Here, there, see where it goes through the metal, until I debond it from here. It's probably soldered in there, so until I cut it open I won't know. But I will have to use this same wire right into the light, because it fits perfectly through this channel. So we can see left and right. I've unplugged the plug from the other end to give me some movement on this wire. The cover just comes off. Looks like it's just held in there with a piece of rubber. That's handy, there's a plug in there. Well, we still had to undo it because we didn't have this much cable to play with, and by the looks of things it's been soldered here. So to get it through the entire system, they've cut it, put it through, soldered it. So we'll use these same lines for the resolder. So this is a new one that I've got, still chrome. In comparison, I mean, you can't really tell looking at it from where you guys are, but this is pretty inferior compared to that, but it's not the light I want, it's what's inside. This is the other side that I've stripped. If you have a look, it's pretty similar in size. So we have a side light, brake light and indicator, and here we have 4 wires, an earth, side light, brake light, indicator, 4 wires. We've only got 3 wires here. So what this does is, when the brake light's on, it activates the brake light as an indicator. So not as straightforward as I thought it'd be. So I'm going to have to go back through the wiring, because I've got a feeling now this goes into a control box. See what we're going to do from there. Well, we don't get to see many big dogs coming in this place, but just had 4 bikes turn up. Let's have a look, see what they are. So I've just had another big dog turn up for a few bits and pieces to be done on it, along with a glittery Harley Davidson, along with a little Indian Scout and a Harley Fat Boy. And there's so much chrome here, I'm sure the planet's gone off tilt a little bit with all the weight there. So you get one unique bike in, another one turns up. So yeah, there's a few bits to do on these ones. Customers getting ready to sell them, so if you're looking for a bike, might be one here in the paper. I've had to move the bike from the middle of the workshop, so I was monopolising half of our bay. Okay, so I've got the wiring list here for the control units down here. A little control box here. It's got one plug at the front, one at the back. And if we look at the diagram here, we can see for the rear brake we have an input for rear brake switch, which is the orange, and we also have a ground for the rear brake switch. So this creates a loop. So you'll have power in, power out, and the way that works is through this brake pressure switch. So as you apply the brake, the pressure pushes against the switch, makes contact, makes a complete circuit, brings the brake lights on. So when we look at the front diagram, we can see that we have an input from the brake switch, but we have absolutely no ground for that particular switch. So it's either sharing a ground or it goes through some sort of other circuit. So I've managed to find that particular orange wire, which is listed there. So input here is orange wire. So once I cut that, apply the front brake, the brake lights don't come on. but I can't find the other side of the wire. So I've had to strip the switch to have a look to see what's making contact. You can't see in there because it's quite dark, but we've got this wire coming out from the brake switch, which goes into a circuit board, and through the circuit board we go through this block connector, which in turn goes through the wiring here, which in turn goes through the handlebars to make it all neat. Now it's all braided, so I can't cut through this and make any kind of repair. So when I had a closer inspection onto here, there's actually no micro switch in there. It really is difficult to see, I'm sorry. But on the lever there's actually a magnet. The magnet gets close, doesn't even touch it, it gets close to a contact in here, goes into the circuit board changes that into a signal, sends it down to the orange wire, and the orange wire goes into a control box, this control box, and the control box activates the brake light switch. So the front's a bit more complicated than the rear. The rear is just a looped switch system. The front uses a magnet to create an electronic circuit, which in turn is turned into a ground. This picks up the ground signal, converts it to electrical power, sends it to the lights. So this has made my job more complicated than it needed to be. So plan B. I'm not too worried about the rear switch. We're going to work on that later, but for now I'm going to try and see if I can do something with the front one. So I have a micro relay here. I have a few terminals and a fuse for protection. So I've already stuck a connector on the end of this, so that's going to go to the battery. I'm going to cut the other end, put a female spade to go onto here, and then we're going to see if this earth will at least activate this relay. Now, as a safety precaution, I'm going to cut in the centre here, stick 2 more terminals on there, stick a 5 amp fuse in there, so if God forbid that touches anything like earth, we are protected. Okay, ignition on. And now I'm going to activate the brake and see if we can hear that relay clicking. So I've traced the wiring back for the rear brake. It goes right underneath the frame, it comes up in between the engine and the transmission, and then it heads over to the other side, down the side of this frame, and it disappears through the back somewhere. So my plan is to literally cut the wire somewhere here, stick an extension on it, come straight up the tube and head over to the relay and blend it into that wiring, and hopefully both front and rear brakes will work together. So now I need to put the new lights into the loom, the new system. The wire I've got, well, the lighting with the wire I've got is quite short, so it only goes about halfway into this sheathing, which runs through this very tight groove along the side bars. Now I need to solder this into this system, but if I solder all these together, they're going to be really bunched up and they won't fit into these grooves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stagger solder these, which means I'm going to keep one long, cut the next one down by about 1 inch, the next one down by another inch, and so on, so that we'll have a solder, for example, here, one here, one here, and one further down, and therefore you can stagger the thicker parts of the sheathing so they'll still fit into this groove. So This is all done, bar just the live coming out of it. So now I need to get our new light in there. Just before we do any of that, I need to go through the lighting sequence to make sure that black is a ground, which is a side light, which is a brake light, and then I can match those to these. So I managed to get the wire up here from the brakes. I followed it as far as I could underneath the motorcycle, chopped it, pulled it through. I'm just going to make sure I've actually cut the right wires. So I'm going to get my multimeter, just do a continuity test. It's a bit extreme. My multimeter's run out of battery, so I've had to use my scanner. I'm just going to loop these together so we have no continuity. I'm going to apply the brake, creates brake pressure, switch activates, and we have continuity. On and off. There we go. So we've got the right wires. So this is the relay that we fitted earlier. Make sure the front one works. So I've got my earth coming up to activate this relay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this to earth, have this earth linked to this one. So whether you apply the front brake or the rear brake, the earth will switch the relay, bring the lights on. So I need to get a live onto one of these other terminals. So once this is activated, it will send a live signal out to the brake lights. So instead of bringing a second line in, I'm just going to loop this live into this live. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a little bit further up here. Just going to cut into the wire. Well, I hope this makes sense. So we have a permanent live into after the relay activation and before the relay activation, and everything is earth switched. So the front brake switch signal will send an earth signal which will activate the relay. The live will go from one side to the other, light the bulbs, and the same with the rear brake. So now all we need to do is take a live off here, spare it into two, so we're going to left light, right light. So I've got the ignition on, I've got my power probe set up, so I'm just going to go through each one and see which one's an earth. So there's our side light. So this one's doing nothing. This one's our earth. Obviously got no brake light there because we've just substituted that one. So just put the left indicator on. Don't know if you can see that. So that's our flasher. So the purple in the middle is direction indicator, the red one is side light, black one is earth, and then we've got our new brake light. Okay, I've spared you all that cutting and soldering. So you can see where I've staggered it. I've got one solder joint here, one joint here, one here. We've got our red wire left for the brake light switch. And we've kept the entire sheath intact. So I just need to run an extra red cable up here just for the brake light. Right, I'm just going to show you how far we got. Ignition on, side light, turn signal, and if I put this red one to the battery, we should get a brake light as well. Okay, so it's all working. So now we need to cut these 4 wires from here so we can get it in through this hole at the back and into here, and then we'll have to resolder the 4 wires inside here. Okay, got the LED pack in there. It's all soldered inside the housing through this bracket. Just flip it over. So now we're going to put it all back into this groove, and then back on the motorcycle this side, and then repeat the process on the other side. So this is the last terminal to go on. So these are the 2 tail ends of the right brake light, left brake light. So I just need to cut it. So I'm going to have this relay tucked down the side here. I just need to get the wires to sort of reach there. Okay, everything's connected now, but I made a bit of a boo-boo here. So I've now connected the relay up, and if I go over, the lights are on, the ignition's off. This relay is a permanently on relay. It switches off, not switch on, which I didn't realise. So I've got a replacement relay here, same size, but this is a switch on relay. So this blue one, this terminal here and this terminal here have permanent continuity, and this one is a switch on, this one's a switch off. Okay, relay swapped over to the brown one. If you look at the lights now, they're actually off. So I'll turn the ignition on. I'll activate the brake now. And it's coming on and off. Don't know if you can hear, but the relay's clicking. Well, it's all finally back together. The lights work, the new relay's done. I just need to find a new home for it. Just about to put the wheel back on. Just gone over and had a look at it, and it's got a collapsed wheel bearing in there. So all the balls have moved around to one side and the cage is broken. So I'm going to have to pull that out to put a new bearing in there. So I've got the bearings out. Let's take 3 bearings. I've got 3 bearings here. Although these are metric bearings, they're imperial holes. I do keep these on the shelf. 52mm wide, 25mm centres, but this is 25.4 centre because it's an inch. Being an American chopper, everything is imperial on there. Even the Allen key bolts, which I took the sprocket off. So I've got these 2 bearings out this side. Ironically, some of the bolts were loose on this, and it looks like the actual sprocket's been chattering backwards and forwards because there's some burring on the face here. Use the blind hole puller to get the bearings out. Once you get one out, you can just knock the others out from the other end. But it's just getting that first one out. There you go, extension bar, knock the other 2 out. Right, let's get it back in, get it back on the bike, get it back to the customer. Right, the wheel's back on. Calipers back on. Side covers are back on. I've tidied up the wiring. The handlebar mechs are all back together. Side cover on. All that's left to do is a seat, get it back in for an MOT. Well guys, sorry to interrupt your show, but this video is getting a tad long now and there's still more work to do on this particular chopper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it here as part 1. We're going to do part 2. The only way you're going to see part 2 is when you subscribe and hit the bell notifications to be notified next time part 2 turns up. Alright guys, see you soon. Out for now.